Hello everyone, welcome to the Infosectrain. My name is Ayush and I will be your instructor for this entire session. In this particular session, we are going to discuss interview question specifically on AWS. I am not only going to discuss question answer, but also I will explain the concept so that you don't have to cram these answer. If you learn the concept, then you can easily address interview question and as well as you can structure your own answer. Important cloud security aspects in AWS. So the critical cloud security aspects in AWS refer to authentication and authorization and access control. Now team authentication and authorization allow genuine user to access data and application. As we know, authentication is just you need to give username password and verify that you are a genuine user, and authorization is the level of access that we have provided. So we can use authentication and authorization so that the person can have appropriate access. Now, on the other hand, access control helps in restricting the access of other users trying to enter AWS environment. And for that, we can enforce like lot of things we have. We can enforce policies. Okay. So now moving on to next question. So next question is, what are the important security precautions before migration to AWS cloud? So team, the important precaution that user must take before migrating to AWS cloud should be, first thing is that data integrity. So data integrity, data is really important thing. So our first focus should be data integrity, and then data loss, then there should be no data loss, then data storage options, business continuity. Team, like business continuity is really important. If you are not able to give continuous access or like continuous services to your customer, then there will be a chance that you might be losing business, right? So business continuity must be required one. Now uptime, so there should be a uptime, and the most important thing, compliance with rules and regulation. So now team, if you are not following the proper compliance, then you will be in trouble. Like you are having like lot of complaints like HIPAA, GDPR, PCI. So if you are using these kind of things, or if you are just holding data of peoples of another country, then you should always check compliance with rules and regulation. Now moving on to the next question. So what is AWS identity and access management? Team, first of all, I would like to tell you this is the core of AWS identity and access management, and this service is free of cost. Second thing is that this service is global. This service is not region based, this is global. And IAM is also all about AA. A is means authentication, authorization, and accountability. So we have discussed authorization and authentication. Let's talk about our accountability. We have log files to check what is done by whom. So we have logs to check for what has done by whom. So this is accountability, and AAA stands for IAM. IAM is all about authentication, authorization, and accountability. Now, if we talk about IAM, IAM is an AWS service that enables you to provide fine-grained access control to interact, control to users, groups, or roles to interact with AWS service on behalf of your AWS account, or interact with AWS resources created in your account. So team services are like AWS EC2, S3, and resources will be instance bucket, right? So I think it is clear the difference between service and resources. Now, it is a web service that allows you to securely control individual access and group access to AWS resources. Now, if we talk about IAM, in IAM, we have a lot of things, but particularly we discuss, we have users, groups, and roles. So now let's discuss about user and groups. So team, if we talk about best practices, so what AWS recommend us that don't use root account. So what we should do, we should not use root account. Instead of that, we should create users and administrator account for accessing our account. The reason is that team, if your user account or administrator account is compromised, but still you have a chance that you can save your account or your organization using root account. But if your root account has been compromised, then you won't be able to do anything. Then your whole organization is gone. So if you create a user and group in IAM, it's basically this, they can access your account on behalf of you, and they will have a separate username and password. So team, if like user, like I am having an organization and I'm having different people, so what I can do, I within the same account I can create different users and I can provide them credentials like username and password, right? Now I can add users to a group. I can just group them using users. For example, I have a team of developers, testers, right? So what I can do, I can just add developers in developer group, tester in tester group, and allow them and give them necessary access, right? And another thing that we are having in IAM is that is called as pledge, or what we call as policies. And these policies are used to control access of unauthorized people. So what we can do, we can just enforce policies that what a user can do or not. Like if I am having 3 instances, then I can write a policy and attach to a user. Then what will happen, user will able to access only one instance that I want, and other 2 instance will not be accessed by user. So enforcing policy, you can restrict the permission of users. And the best idea is that don't give permission separately, separate users, group them if it possible. If it is possible to group them, so you should group them and assign policies to groups rather than individuals. And it consists of name and credentials, same as root account. Cool team. Now moving on to the next question, that is, what is AWS single sign-on? So team, AWS single sign-on, that is also called as SSO, is a cloud service that allows you to grant your users access to AWS resources, such as Amazon EC2 instance across multiple AWS accounts. By default, AWS SSO now provides a directory that you can use to create users and organize them in groups and set permissions across those groups. You can also grant the users that you create in SSO to applications such as Salesforce, Office 365, and its directory are available at no additional cost to you. Team, directory is a key building block that allows you to manage the user to whom you want to grant access to AWS resources and application. If you manage your users in an Active Directory, then AWS SSO already provides you with an option to connect to an Active Directory. So if you have already Active Directory and you're having user, then AWS will give an option to connect it to SSO. So team, using SSO, you can just log into multiple accounts, right? In multiple applications. So you just need to sign on in one using, you need to just use, sign in using the sign on like your username and password, then you can access anything. Moving on to the next question. Now, what is or define Amazon Guard Duty? Team, Amazon Guard Duty is a threat detection service that continuously monitors your AWS accounts and workloads for malicious activity and delivers detailed security findings for visibility and remediation. And it continuously monitors your AWS accounts, instance, containers, workloads, users, and storage for potential threats. And it exposes threats quickly using machine learning, behavioral modeling, and threat intelligence feeds from AWS and leading third parties. It comes with 30-day free trial. Now moving on to the next question, team. Now next question is, define AWS Trust Advisory. If we talk about AWS Trust Advisor, it serves as an ideal online tool serving as a customized cloud expert, and it can help you with resource configuration in accordance with best practices. It evaluates the AWS environment thoroughly for addressing any security groups. And you can consider like Trust Advisor as a your mentors. Like you can just get best practices and best advice to follow. It also helps us to focus on the most important recommendation to optimize your cloud deployment and improve resilience. And team, if we talk about cloud advisory and if you go on your Amazon management console, you can see that they recommend you, like for free, they will only recommend you that if you're using security groups and you are using wildcard, that is 0.0.0.0/0, so then they will recommend you that don't use these kind of wildcard entries. Or if you haven't enabled MFA, then also Trust Advisor will give you recommendation that this account hasn't enabled MFA. So please go and enable MFA so that you can secure your account. Now there are like lots of benefits with AWS Trust Advisor. First one is cost optimization. We talk about cost optimization. Trust Advisor can help you save costs with actionable recommendation by analyzing usage, configuration, and spend. Example include identifying idle IDS DB instance, underutilized EBS volume, unassociated elastic IP address, and excessive timeouts in Lambda function. So by analyzing these things and giving you best recommendations, you can save costs, right? Like your DB instances is idle, right? So they will recommend you just don't use it, or it's underutilized. Like your EBS volume is underutilized, so they will recommend us just use the less amount of it, right? Now, if we talk about performance, so Trust Advisor can help you to increase the performance by analyzing usage and configuration. An example can be analyzing EBS throughput and latency, compute usage of EC2 instances, and configuration on CloudFront. And third benefit we are having, that is called as security. Trust Advisor can help you improve the security of your AWS environment by suggesting foundational security best practice curated by security expert. Like I already told you, like if you haven't enabled MFA, then they will recommend you to enable MFA. If you talk about fault tolerance, they will help you with the to improve the reliability of your services. Example, like auto scaling EC2 groups, deleted health check on route 53, disabled availability zones, right? So they will help you out with fault tolerance. And finally, we are having something called service quotas. So service quotas are the maximum number of resources that you can create in an AWS account. Cool team. Now moving on to the next question. Now, what is the role of AWS security bulletins? So team, security bulletins are one of the most reliable sources of updated information on existing threat and vulnerabilities. So by using bulletin, you would be a most updated person about the existing threats and vulnerabilities. And these security bulletins helps customer to work in close quarters with AWS security expert to address vulnerability and report abuse. So using these things, you can get updated information about threats and vulnerabilities. Moving on to the next question. What is the significance of AWS well-architected framework? So team, if you're having well-architected framework and you're using this, the AWS well-architected framework establishes the foundations for cloud architect to develop cloud infrastructure for their applications with high security, efficiency, performance, and resilience. The security pillar in the well-architected framework establish the ideal precedence of data integrity, system protection, and controls for detection of security events. If you go for like well-architected framework, then you can increase like lot of things like performance, efficiency, and you can just protect your system, right? Now moving on to the next question. What are the notable advantage of AWS security? The striking benefits of AWS security includes the following: secure scalability with better visibility and control, right? Now, automation of security controls and reduction of risk associated with deeply integrated services. So now like security controls, they are like security services automated, like you can go for a shield, or like there are a lot of things. So by using these things, you can just reduce the risk. Then you have compliance with the highest benchmark of data security and privacy. And finally, extensive community support. So you will get a high or extensive community support. Moving on to the next question, team, what is MFA, multi-factor authentication? Multi-factor authentication is the best practice that adds an extra layer of protection on top of your username and password. Like whenever you are trying to log in your AWS account, first thing they will ask is that your user name and password. So this is the single factor authentication. Now, after that, if you have enabled MFA, then they will ask you authentication code that will be just sent to your email or your phone number, right? So by using authentication code, you are having multi-factor authentication and you are adding extra layer to protect your account, and it will help you to secure your resources and services. So MFA is really important thing, and it is highly recommended by AWS to secure your account.